What is going on, everybody? The time is finally here. One of the most requested products I've asked to review on this channel, although I feel like I say with a lot of things, this is definitely up there, is the Harambe Systems Bamboo bar setup. Now, they do make two different versions of their system alongside a very growing list of upgradable accessories, which we'll get into a little bit in this video. But specifically in this video, we'll be talking about their T-bar bundle, which is their bar and footplate combination. They already made a shorter bar they called the T-bar, which I think this one's actually an upgraded, or I should say a new version of this. I'm pretty sure it's like a version 2. But what they didn't make is a smaller footplate. And you guys know I love smaller footplates. Khalid was generous enough to send this alongside everything you guys are seeing here in this video. And I think I got the very first T-plate they actually sent out. So I'm really excited and very grateful for that. Now with Harambe Systems, I did a long time ago review their first original big beefier footplate, which is still great. I'm looking to review their K-bar in the very near future. But again, specifically, we're just talking about the T bundle, this more or less the small footplate and the small bar. This really is the first impression I have using a Harambe bar alongside their Sling system. So I want to give you guys my first impression based on exercises and kind of go over some general pros and cons what I've noticed comparing this to other bamboo bar type systems. Now there will be some light comparisons to the X3, which is probably their closest competitor in this category, but I'm really gonna hold off on that direct comparison until I get their K-bar for the sake of time and also really give it a full review. Now, if you guys do want to pick up anything from Harambe and also help support me and the channel, you guys can use the promo code SLIDINGBENCHTRAINER to save 10% off anything from their website. Now, getting into the unboxing and the backdrop of this, I'm gonna give you guys an excerpt from the interview I did with Khalid. It was not included in the original interview. Khalid is the owner and creator of the Harambe system. I'm gonna let you guys kind of hear him explain what separates the T-bar from, say, their K-bar.
It's just a shorter bar, so 27 inches about compared to 36 inches. And the main advantage of the T-bar is that it's more travel friendly. So the T stands for travel. That's the main advantage. Otherwise, you lose versatility because you lose the width of the K-bar. It's just harder to travel with a 36-inch bar versus a 27-inch bar. A 27-inch bar will fit in most medium check-in luggage. You can't bring a bar on the airplane. Anything over 9 inches is considered a blunt weapon. Yeah, so that's the main thing. So you lose the versatility. You also lose some of the heft. The K-bar is heavy. It's about 12 pounds.
Now I'll break down everything you guys saw in that video here in a second, but the T in the T-bar and T-plate really just stands for travel. And keeping with that travel theme, as you guys are seeing in this video, I was traveling out of town on a family men's trip at our Fortress of Solitude here, where I made heavy use of their very over-engineered bag. And as you guys can see, this bag is no joke. Aside from the size of this thing, there's an abundance of pockets and room that far exceeds, in my opinion, the requirement of the Harambe system itself, that I just packed everything for my trip in this bag. And I'd say the bag is just an example of everything that Khalid is selling on the Harambe website and Harambe Systems. Everything down to the minor accessories is over-engineered and built to last. Now, getting into the bar itself, the very first thing I noticed when I unboxed the bar was that even though it's pretty small as far as length, I think it's 27.75 inches, which is, even though compared to X3, which is considered a short bar, but this is like their standard bar, it's still much bigger than that. It was just how heavy it is. This isn't necessarily light, but you can definitely feel how much more heavy it is. Not by a huge amount, but it's definitely a beefy bar. It is all stainless steel, which is objectively probably a little bit more durable compared to the X3 material. The knurling is great. It's not too aggressive. Again, it's hard not to compare, but the knurling in the X3 is probably a deeper, thicker knurling. It's obviously a little bit longer, so it's kind of a nice little sweet spot where as far as being not too long, but also not too short. But I will get into the fact that I think you kind of need some extra length because of their Sling system and the way it can kind of pull on the inside and maybe take up some real estate on the bar. Each side of the bar rotates independently of each other, which does give it off a super smooth feel. So when you are doing an exercise, it does feel extra smooth compared to the X3. There's a core on the inside where everything rotates together. Now, after you talk about their barbell, you have to talk about their slings and also the rods that come with their barbell. So whenever you purchase a barbell, you have to pick up various ropes. I think the T-bar does come with these shorter ropes, but you can get black ropes. Yellow is a little more of a medium rope, and you actually can get some other longer ropes to go along with it. What that does, if it's not obvious, the longer the rope, the further it increases the distance on the sling, and that can be useful for a number of reasons. And right away, I'll say this was a big concern of mine up front for even getting into the Harambe system, because I'm like, this is something else I got to pay for. According to the website, it says you got to replace the rope, but after that long interview I had with Khalid, which I highly encourage you guys to check out, he explained that this rope is extremely durable. This should last probably well over the recommended replacement of like 5 years, could be even up into 20 years. So the rope I don't think is really gonna wear that long, so I won't let that really discourage you. But the rope and rod system really is kind of the selling point of this system. So when you do get their K-bar, I think they're gonna recommend you actually get the bigger rods. These are kind of the shorter ones. You're not gonna fit as kind of heavy or bigger of a band on here. So I should say something as far as if you're gonna look for the most versatile thing, I would probably say the K-bar and the bigger rods. Although I assume you could upgrade the bigger rods on the T-bar as well. Now there are certainly pros and cons, but I would say for most people that are supporters of Harambe, they're gonna say the pros far outweigh the cons. The cons are most notably the fact that it is kind of cumbersome. It takes a bit longer to kind of change the bands in and out. It already kind of puts the bar with some added extension. And I'll get to the bands in a second. The bands are 38 inches, not 41 inches, a little bit shorter. But since you have this extra slack here, of course you can shorten it based on a shorter rope length, but that might kind of make the band a little bit kind of longer, hanging a little bit longer. And then also when you are doing some things, I'll mention this later in the exercises, the sling likes to kind of pull on the inside on certain things like overhead presses. I even found doing chest presses, this thing was kind of close to my wrist, a little uncomfortable. But again, kind of a minor thing and you can kind of fine tune that. But as far as some of the pros of having the sling system, the biggest thing, like I've been saying, is the versatility. So they sell their little spacers. They have a version 1 and a version 2 spacer. Version 1 has more of an opening gap. You can slip right through here. Version 2 has a kind of a closed loop like that, so you can put it right over the top, and then you just attach it down to the sling underneath the K-rod, and that way it would actually shorten the distance. And the reason you would do this is just progressive overload. The harder you want to make things, the tighter you can make these rods actually closer to the bar, so to make things a little bit harder on the band tension. But for some people, that might be a little overkill and people might not be into it as much, so I can also understand that. The other two big things with the sling system is it just makes the experience a little more fluid. So as you're doing this, it's not so kind of, feel like it's kind of caught on based on like a hook system like an X3. The last benefit I find with using the sling system is while it can be a little annoying, switching the bands in and out, again, a minor inconvenience, but once it's on there, it's not going anywhere. So that's also another great thing. You can throw this thing down, pick it up, and the bands are gonna be locked in there, not gonna be flopping off the hooks. So that's a big benefit of the sling system. Now there are 4 bands that come with the T-bar bundle, and I'm gonna do a whole separate video talking about Harambe's bands, because when I talked to Khalid, the owner, he spent a lot of attention to detail. I learned a lot of things about the quality of loop style bands, which I previously talked about before, that I think I want to share in a separate video. But I would say their band tension, well, first off, their band length is different. It's 38 inches, not 41 inches on a standard loop band. And I assume that has to go with the fact that you have this sling system. They're made a little bit shorter. This can be some personal preference, but it's a decent mix of tensions. It's not super heavy as far as what they give you. Their heaviest band isn't like the heaviest thing in the world, and they go down to like a super light band. So I'd say for like that beginner, intermediate level of someone getting into this system, I think it's a good, decent mix. But I could see some people saying they want more of a different variety, especially more some heavy bands thrown into that bundle. But they do sell heavier bands in their website, which you also can add on, so you can check that out as well. And in true Harambe fashion, again, they went pretty overkill in just maintenance and quality of the bands. They make their own premium silicone oil for latex, so it allows you to kind of basically coat this for a period of time, basically increase the longevity of the bands, and also allows it to have a nice smooth transfer of force on their foot plate. Now getting into their brand new product, which is their T-plate. Obviously a much smaller version of this one. This one is sitting at, according to what I got down here, 19 by 10 inches. Very similar to what this one was, same comparable heavy duty quality. When I picked this thing up and started using it for its size, it is very solid, it's not going anywhere. A little higher off the ground, say compared to like the X3 force plate. Very smooth in the bottom. This is not gonna have any kind of premature wear and tear on the band, so that's also great. Now, I don't know if everybody was looking forward to this as much as I was, because I personally am a big proponent of the smaller foot plates for a number of reasons. It might just be my personal preference. You can see even my Mac board plate that I kind of sell is relatively small. This is actually smaller than this. And again, Harambe's pretty much thought of everything. They have this thing they call the mat or the pad, I forget what it's called, but you can drape it over your foot plate. A little big for the T-bar plate or T-plate, maybe more so for the bigger one, but it's also can be dual use to actually put underneath to help protect the bands and also just have your kind of your foot plate on a softer surface. They also sell a block. So if you're going down and kind of resting the barbell for doing things like deadlifts, you can rest it here. Also probably as a safety precaution too, if you were to let go of the barbell, it's not gonna slam down your feet. So I know that's a concern for people. It actually has happened to some people. Or if you're doing bench presses, you can rest the bar on the block here. So a nice little useful tool they also sell on their website. Now getting into where it counts, what really separates this bar as far as how it feels with various exercises. You guys are seeing a bunch of stuff already in the backdrop of this video, doing my standard fare of things I would do with these types of things. When you compare this bar to like X3, even something like a wooden stick, a very cheap knockoff X3 thing on Amazon, like the pre-beam bar. I've also reviewed and talked about the Jay Bryant bar, or even something recently I just talked about using a simple, pipe you can get at the hardware store. What really separates this and who's gonna like this type of specific bar and just the Harambe system in general? One thing is just gonna be the quality is definitely there. Compared to all these things, this is the most over-engineered, the highest quality of all the barbells that are out there. Simple fact that it's stainless steel, these things rotate independently. When you're doing, say, an exercise in here, obviously compared to like a cheap pipe in a hardware store, you can functionally do stuff with bands, honestly, with a stick or a pipe or just any bar, honestly, and you can do it. But the biggest thing you're noticing is just how smooth this really feels. The knurling and just the quality is there. This thing is it's probably never gonna break. And even as Khalid said, using stainless steel, since it crystallizes it, the more you use it, the stronger this thing actually gets. So even compared to something like the X3, which is in the same price point for systems, they're both $549 when they're on sale or using any discount codes. This thing probably definitely costs more to manufacture, there's no question about it. It's also noticeably bigger. That's the other thing you guys can see here compared to the X3. Now I do think it is a nice sweet spot for bar length, as I said, at 27.75 inches. I do like that a lot. However, the biggest con I found with this bar specifically, this is why I want to really try out and test their K-bar to give it a fair shake, was on two exercises. The overhead press, when I'm doing it, the slings like to really pull on the inside, and it's kind of annoying when you feel that tension, especially kind of hitting your wrist. And I've had this discussion with many people say, well, you shouldn't use a smaller gripped bar to do overhead presses, and I would disagree with that. I'll refer back to Mark Rippetoe, who is an expert on barbell lifting, especially overhead pressing, is one specific video where he talked about, and I said this to myself, is that you actually want to, if you can, you're flexible enough to get your hand closest to the point of rotation, in this case the shoulder, as you're doing overhead shoulder presses. So I prefer to have a narrow grip as a shoulder press, and I just found with this bar, didn't really work out too well. The bands were also kind of like hitting me in a certain angle. It's very uncomfortable. Where I actually did like this length a lot was in doing my back squats and front squats. And I know for some people, I hear this all the time, people say, how do you get in that back squat? You gotta be a little flexible to kind of get in that position, but I actually love doing back squats with these types of setups, and this was actually the perfect length actually. I got around it, didn't really bother me at all. My hands could actually cup the outside of this, so doing banded squats and a back squat, this felt excellent. So in summary and wrapping this up, if you're looking for a relatively smaller bar and probably the best quality in this category of using resistance bands, a footplate, and a barbell, this would definitely be the best quality, hands down. Probably the most versatile in ways you can progressively overload your bands and band tension. Again, it's not gonna be for everybody. Some people could care less. This is gonna be one or two tools, one or two exercises they're gonna use with this thing. Some people, this is their main system, what they're doing for a bulk of their home fitness, in which case, if that is you, the Sling system is really gonna work out in your favor. Using things like spacers, different rod lengths, and even rope lengths, of course, band tensions. You can do a lot of things with this. We didn't even cover their app. I'll probably cover that in a future video. There's a little bit of a learning curve, a little bit of a time sacrifice changing out bands with the Sling. So if you're someone who likes to switch out bands on the fly, doing drop sets or just fine tuning things a little bit more so throughout exercises and sets, this might be an extra just inconvenience, a little more cumbersome to switch those bands out with the Sling system. And you might be one of those people that is really on the fence on this or their K-bar, dropping that much money on something you're not sure if you're gonna use. In which case, I've said many times, yeah, just try something cheap. Try a stick, pipe, some other cheaper knockoff and see if you guys like it. And then finally, even if you like this Harambe system, you might be considering which one do I get, the T-bar or the K-bar, in which case I'll just say stay tuned and I'll give you guys my own personal thoughts on that. What is great about Harambe is that you can kind of pick and choose what you like. So different bars, different foot plates, and even just the bag itself. You might have your own kind of system or a different system. The bag itself, honestly, is worth its money and just what it has and what it can do for you, especially if you're traveling. So that's what's great about Harambe. You don't have to commit to their system. You can pick and choose what you like, even just simply picking up their bands, which are actually awesome, or their Harambe butter to help take care of your bands. But stay tuned in the future. I know they got new stuff planned. I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear things. And if you guys have any thoughts or comments, let me know down below in the description box. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.